Hi, I'm Marty Judnich with the Judnich Law Office, and are you ready for the 2019 Hunting Laws Update? Here we go. All right, a couple basics about hunting in the state of Montana before we get into a lot of the updates, some general knowledge stuff to make sure you stay out of trouble and you don't have to come see me to defend you when a warden comes and sees you. Oh, hey Mr. Warden, what's up? Yeah, I'm just trying to explain to the people some hunting law updates so that I can help you do your job and maybe not get them in trouble.
How about you tell them to just follow the law there, lawyer?
I can see you are a man of few words, so I'm gonna go ahead and go on with this stuff and you can let me know if I do anything wrong. Cool? Okay, great. Well, the warden's checking over on me, so let's get into a couple things and make sure we know what's what with Montana hunting laws. One of the first big laws is, when can you hunt? Well, one of the major things that you need to understand is hunting hours. Hunting hours are a half an hour before sunlight and a half an hour after sunset. I would use the sunrise and sunset tables that are published. That's the best way of knowing when that half hour is, and you would be surprised. They get pretty specific when they hear shots ring out or animals running around. So check your sunset and sunrise tables for that. So first things first, let's talk about licenses, or what we also call tags. One of the first big rules is you have to have your license on you, in your possession. It can't be in your truck, it can't be at home. You can't say, man, I forgot it. You have to have it on you when you harvest your animal, and then you're gonna put it on the animal. We're gonna talk about that. But the other big thing, you cannot loan your license or tag to somebody else. It's your animal, it's your hunt, it needs to be yours. You can't say, hey, go kill my this or that for me and then put my tag on it. Can't do that, that's illegal, guys. So how do you validate your tag, or fill it, so to speak, and stay in compliance with regulations? So if you harvest an animal one evening and then you go and retrieve it the next morning, your validation date is that night that you actually harvested and got the animal. So make sure you get that right, because you don't want to mess that one up. You also must attach the validated tag to the animal. Now this is something that has changed over the last couple of years. So here is your first update. The rules of when you put the validated tag on the animal are: before the carcass is removed from the kill site, or before the hunter leaves the kill site. So think about it. It's if you're going to dress your animal out, cut it up, all that other good stuff, you're allowed to do that without putting the validated tag on it immediately. However, before you leave any portion of that animal, take it out of the kill site, or before you physically leave, that's when you need to tag your animal and put it physically on the carcass. How long does it stay on the carcass? Well, it stays on the carcass until the meat is consumed. So that means if you're gonna have it butchered or anything else, keep the validated tag with a large portion of the meat, and when you consume it, that's when you can throw away the tag. Let's talk a minute about permission to hunt and trespassing. This is a very common ticket because people don't always understand the rules. One of the biggest things you can do, go get OnX Maps. It will tell you what's private, what's public, what is sort of private, sort of public. And what I mean by that is there are block management areas, there are school sections, there's all sorts of property ownership issues, and each have kind of their own rules, and sometimes those rules do change. If you're gonna be hunting on land that is private, you must obtain permission prior to the time you're hunting from the landowner. So that means don't just show up, maybe harvest your animal, then go ask for permission. Not the right way to do it. You get permission first. Now, even if it's not posted as private property, and in Montana, how we post private property and say, hey, no trespassing, get out of here, is this orange marker that says, hey, this is private property. However, that's not the law. The law is, if it's private property, it is your duty to find out whether it's private or not, and you need to get permission before you hunt. All the more reason to go get the OnX Maps. It'll tell you exactly where private is, where public is, keep you safe, keep you legal, and make sure you're not trespassing. Now, trespassing also applies to retrieval of your animal after you've shot it. And let's say you take an elk, but it runs a little bit away and it actually dies and expires on somebody else's private land. What do you do then? Well, retrieval of game also requires permission on private property. So if your elk or deer or whatever dies on somebody else's land that is private, you must obtain permission from them to go retrieve it. You cannot just go haul off and grab it and say, well, I shot it on my public land or whatever. A good idea is if you get into a spat with a private landowner, call a fish and game warden. They'll help you out. They want people to harvest animals legally, but we also want to be cognizant of people's private property rights. So do the right thing. All right, let's talk about equipment. What's legal? What's not illegal? What can I use? Can I use like lightsaber, something like that. Well, let's talk about it. Let's start first with just rifles, rifle equipment. What can't you use? You cannot use anything with artificial light. That includes spotlights. So you cannot, after hours, after sun goes down, spotlight animals because you can see them real good. They get confused and you can shoot them real easy. You can't do that. That's illegal. You also can't use any infrared scopes or sights. So if you're trying to see behind things, see with your infrareds, you can't do that. That is also illegal in the state of Montana. One of the big differences that not a lot of people understand is there's basically two categories of weapons that can be used to harvest big game, and that is archery equipment and non-archery equipment. And a lot of stuff simply falls into non-archery equipment, which we usually call rifles and such, but it's a lot more than that. So let's talk about what it is. Non-archery equipment includes rifles, pistols, muzzle loaders, crossbows, and shotguns. Why crossbows? Crossbows like archery equipment, isn't it? Well, it's not. In the state of Montana, it's defined as non-archery equipment because archery equipment has lots of definitions that has to do with you are the one that's actually pulling back a bow, and it has certain definitions, can't have a gun stock, stuff like that. So crossbow is still considered non-archery equipment. It is only allowed to be used during the general season, so you cannot use a crossbow during archery season in Montana. Let's talk a little bit about baiting. Baiting is legal in some other states. State of Montana, no go. You cannot bait in the state of Montana, and that includes a lot of different things. Some of the other ways that people try to find animals is the use of electronics, cameras, stuff like that. Use of cameras is okay in some situations, but not all. You cannot use motion sensors in the state of Montana to try and track animals. In other words, if you're hunting a piece of land or property, the day before you go in, you're putting a trail camera up to try and see what you can find the next day. That's not legal if you're using motion sensors in the state of Montana. It is also illegal to use video in order to try and track the motion of game animals. In other words, you're trying to predict where they're going by use of video cameras, and this is while hunting. You can use this stuff for non-hunting purposes if you're just interested in seeing what's going on. These video prohibitions include any type of electronic capability of seeing real-time video. So if you have some fancy device that will show you images of game animals in real time while you're hunting, also illegal. Also a bad idea. That includes satellite and radio telemetry, so don't use your fancy gadgets in Montana. We're not allowing them. Something that's semi-related to baiting is electronically recorded calling sounds. So it's illegal in the state of Montana for big game to use pre-recorded elk calls, deer grunts, things of that nature. Can't use those in this state. What you can use some electronically pre-recorded sounds for is predator hunting. That's perfectly fine, but for big game, no, you cannot use those. More electronic stuff, use of walkie-talkies. Can you use a walkie-talkie or not? Lots of misconceptions about this one. You can use walkie-talkies for safety or any other legitimate reason other than a couple things. And the couple things really include trying to hunt by the use of walkie-talkies. What do we mean by that? You can't use them to try and find game animals. For example, if your buddy's on a hill and you guys have walkie-talkie communication, you can't say, oh man, it's right up there about 200 yards to your left. Cannot do that. You can't actively use it to hunt animals. That's illegal. You also cannot use walkie-talkies to try to avoid game stations. So if you're rolling down the road with something in your back, you say, hey Earl, there's a check game station, you better go the other way. Also illegal. They're probably also going to catch you doing that. It's really not a good idea. There's also a catch-all of no unlawful activity using walkie-talkies. So if you're going to use them, try to keep them for emergency purposes only. That's really what they're used for. Am I still doing okay, Mr. Game Warden? Everything jiving with what you think is right? Cool, man, a few words. Respect that. All right, let's go over a couple more hunting laws and then update time. So, knowing the difference between the types of animals regarding antlered and antlerless, pretty important. Let's go over some of the basics. Deer. The big differences, the only difference you need to know, antlered, antlerless. We talk about does and bucks, but that's not how the law works. The law works with antlered or antlerless. So what does antlerless mean? Well, that means yes, a doe, but it technically means it has no antlers or antlers less than 4 inches long. So if you do have a buck and the antlers are less than 4 inches long, that's technically an antlerless deer. So make sure you have the right tag for that. For elk, it gets a little bit more complicated. There are brow-tine bull, there's spike bull, and then there is cows. So let's talk about the differences real quick. Brow-tine bull. That's the biggest bull. That's the main one. That's the one most people want to hunt. How do you tell if it's a brow-tine bull? Well, thus the name. You're going to look for an antler at least 4 inches long on the lower half of the main beam. So check out this picture. This is the legal definition of a brow-tine bull. Next comes the spike bull. So a spike bull is just a young bull. They have spikes coming out of their heads. They look kind of like aliens, but the legal definition is those antlers don't branch. And if they branch less than 4 inches long from the main beam. So check out this picture. That is the legal definition of what Fish and Wildlife puts out for what a spike bull is. A cow or an antlerless elk is thus the name. It does not have any antlers. It doesn't meet the definition of either a spike bull or a brow tine bull. So if it doesn't meet either of those definitions, it's antlerless. All right, everybody, now the stuff you've been waiting for, the do's and do nots, big updates, mostly electronics in Hunting Laws 2019. Here we go. Okay, for archery equipment, some of the new rules, regulations, updates are, shocker, number 1, no explosives can be used on archery equipment. Nope. Can't have an exploding broadhead tip. Sorry guys, not allowed. Broadheads. Broadheads come in 2 categories mainly. Those are fixed blade and mechanical or expandable broadheads. Both are perfectly legal in Montana. You can use whatever you want. We don't have any prohibitions there. All right, electronics on archery equipment. The basic rule is no battery powered gadgets on your bow. There are a couple exceptions, but not huge ones. There's one big one, but let's talk about arrows for a second. Traditionally, you can't have any electronics on an arrow. However, lighted nocks are now okay in Montana. No big deal. They brought this in actually the year before last, but lighted nocks, perfectly legal. These are actually really awesome. They really help you retrieve your game at the end of night or day. You see this sticking out somewhere, real easy to find. I suggest getting you some because they're legal. Last little bit of equipment that a lot of people have that is illegal is your sights. If you have sights on your bow that have rheostat light on them that light them up at night, that's illegal. You cannot use that in Montana. You technically can't have that light attached to it in the state of Montana. So go ahead and take that light off. One of the last big deals in archery equipment and electronics that is now legal in the state of Montana is a video camera. You can record your hunt now while you're hunting with archery equipment. There's lots of companies that'll sell a little camera that'll attach to your bow, but you can go ahead and throw a GoPro on there or whatever. It is legal to attach a camera to your bow while you're hunting now in the state of Montana for the sole purpose of filming your hunt. Remember the other rules, which is if you put it on there for purposes of trying to find animals, not okay. If you're just filming your hunt, recording it for the experience, that's now legal. All right, some of the other stuff is aircraft. There's big changes in aircraft with the development of drones and things like that. So let's go over some of the highlights because it applies to everything, whether it's a helicopter, a drone, anything in between. All these rules apply to everything, okay? Aircraft cannot be used to locate game for the purpose of, for number 1, hunting animals the same day you went airborne with your aircraft, drone, helicopter, whatever. What that means is if you put your drone in the air on a Monday, you cannot hunt Monday because they're just assuming that you're using it for the purpose of hunting. So you gotta wait at least 1 day from the day you go up in your helicopter or your drone before you hunt. Number 2, you also cannot provide the information the same day from a drone or helicopter or whatever to another person on the same day for the purpose of hunting. You can't fly your drone up and say, hey buddy, the animals are all right over here. Cannot use that information on the same day. That's illegal. So what are drones? By the law, drones have an acronym, a name, and they are called Unmanned Aerial Vehicles or UAVs. Some of the other things you can't do with drones are it's illegal to use a drone to drive up, stir up, or basically push animals in any general direction for any purpose, whether it's hunting or not. You cannot basically use a drone, helicopter, or any other unmanned aerial flying vehicle to basically stir up or mess with animals. Completely illegal. They will fine you heavily for that. Now, remember we talked about how putting a camera on your bow is legal to film a hunt? Guess what you cannot do? You cannot use a drone to film a hunt. Completely illegal. A little bit of a gray area there because you can use a drone to film certain things. However, you cannot use it to film your actual hunt during the hunt, all that stuff. That's the part that's illegal. Don't do it. All right, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the hunting law updates and statuses in 2019. I hope you make a great hunt in Montana. I hope it's safe and you stay out of the way of the game warden, right? I did everything okay, right, man?
So far.
Call me, Marty, at the Judnich Law Office, right here.